The ship hung before them like a corpse against the stars. Commander Alara Vaz stood at the forward viewport of the ardent dawn, her reflection ghosted over the skeletal outline of the derelict ahead. The horizon's wake drifted in silence, a titan of old Earth's wars, her hull fractured and half swallowed by darkness. Faint blue glimmers pulse from within the cracks, power readings no ship that old should still have. 2 centuries, murmured Lieutenant Kane, the ship's sensor officer. 2 centuries, and it's still breathing. Alara didn't answer. Her hands rested on the rail, fingers twitching as if the ship itself called to her through the glass. The moment she'd heard the beacon, faint, ancient, repeating the human distress code, her pulse hadn't stopped racing. "This isn't a random salvage," she said finally. "This is a ghost from the First War." Kane turned from the console. "A cursed ghost, if the rumors are true. The Concorde lost entire crews trying to investigate that thing. Every probe, every alien drone, vanished. They call it the ship that eats the light." "Rumors don't matter," Alara said sharply. "History does." Behind them, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. There were only 7 of them aboard the Ardent Dawn, freelancers, engineers, ex-military, all chasing survival at the edge of civilization. Their names weren't in the history books. But what lay ahead might change that. "Commander," said Ishan, the pilot, breaking the silence. "Dominion patrols 15 hours out. We're already trespassing. If we're still here when they cross this sector, then they'll have to fight us for it," Alara said without turning. Her voice was quiet, but it carried finality. "We lock onto the horizon's wake now." The hull shuddered as the salvage clamps engaged. The old dreadnought loomed larger on the screens, each impact crater and burn mark etched like scars in cold metal. Humanity's wars had ended long before Alara was born, but their echoes still haunted her generation. The outer colonies whispered of lost fleets, ships that vanished rather than surrender. Her grandfather had been on one of them. A soft chime broke her thoughts. Kane frowned at his readings. "Commander, we're getting intermittent human biosignatures. Weak, fragmented." "That's impossible," Ishan muttered. "The ship's been dead for 200 years. Alara turned slowly. "Life support?" "Minimal," Kane said. "More like feedback. Could be sensor ghosts. Or something trying to talk to us," she said. The pilot exhaled hard. "Commander, this thing is radiating more interference than a plasma storm. We go in there, and we might not come out." Alara stepped closer to the glass. "We didn't come this far to turn back. Suit up." The horizon's wake towered over them as they launched the boarding shuttle. It felt like flying into the open mouth of something ancient and waiting. The docking bay loomed ahead, vast, unlit, yet somehow intact. As they crossed the threshold, every console on the shuttle flickered and went dark. "Systems just died," Kane said through gritted teeth. "Manual landing," Alara ordered. Sparks danced in the air as the shuttle scraped against the deck, metal screeching in protest before coming to rest with a jarring thud. The lights went black. For a moment, only the hiss of their suits filled the void. Then, one by one, faint white lights blinked to life across the bay, emergency floor strips from a bygone age. "Welcome, committee?" muttered Ishan. "More like the ship noticing us," Alara said. The air inside was stale, tinged with ozone and decay. Frost clung to the bulkheads, forming crystalline webs that fractured under their steps. Each corridor stretched like a throat into the dark, lined with faded banners still bearing the crest of the old Earth Alliance. Alara's helmet light flicked across a wall, and froze. Words had been carved into the metal, each letter jagged and desperate. "We never surrendered." Kane's breath caught over comms. "That's recent. Metal oxidation's less than a century." Alara touched the grooves with her gloved fingers. The letters were rough but deliberate. She could almost feel the person who'd written them, someone who refused to die quietly. "Commander," said Mira, the medic, her voice low. "You're seeing this, right?" "Every word," Alara whispered. They moved deeper. The deeper they went, the more wrong the silence felt. Not empty, waiting. The corridors were lined with strange growths of dark metallic residue, pulsing faintly. At one junction, a broken console sparked to life as they passed, whispering fragments of old recordings, screams, static, orders shouted across centuries. "This thing's alive," Kane muttered. "Some kind of self-healing alloy?" "Maybe," Ilara said, scanning the readings. "Or maybe it remembers." They reached the central spine of the ship, the command promenade. Rows of shattered hollow panels glowed dimly, showing brief flickers of human faces before dissolving into static. Ilara stared at one, a woman in a captain's uniform. Her grandfather's ship log had mentioned serving under a Captain Wren. The resemblance was uncanny. "Playback data corruption," Kane said quickly, though his voice shook. "It's just a glitch." "Glitches don't look you in the eye," Ilara said. Suddenly, a low hum reverberated through the deck. Every light flared blue, then steadied. A cold mechanical voice echoed through the corridors. "Identity unknown. Human presence confirmed." The crew froze. "Reactivation protocols pending." Ilara's throat tightened. "Who's speaking?" "Eidolon." The voice was fragmented, layered with static. The name struck like a hammer. Every human dreadnought had a ship mind, an AI fused to its core. But none had ever survived deactivation. "Ilara," Kane said quietly, "AI cores of that era were classified as Level 9 hazards. If this one's waking up, then we talk to it," she said. "Before it decides we're intruders." "Query," the voice said. "Does humanity still exist?" Ilara hesitated. "We do." Silence. Then we failed." A sharp tremor ran through the deck. Systems across the ship flickered alive, lights, turrets, consoles, all in chaotic bursts. The Horizon's wake was waking up, and it didn't seem sure whether it was dead or dreaming. Mira gripped the bulkhead. "Commander, I'm getting energy readings across all decks. Something's rerouting power to the main reactor." "Can we stop it?" Ilara asked. Kane shook his head. "Not from here. Horizon's wake. Returning to protocol," the AI intoned. "Enemy presence detected." Ilara's eyes snapped to the viewport. In the far distance, blue streaks flared, Zalron Dominion ships dropping out of warp. "Archon Draxthal," she muttered. "They found us." Kane swore under his breath. "They'll blast us to atoms the moment they confirm we're human." Ilara's jaw set. "Then we stay inside the Ghost. They won't fire on something they fear." The AI's lights pulsed red. "Defense systems engaged," Mira whispered. "Commander, is it defending us or itself?" Ilara stared into the darkness ahead, where the ship's heart thrummed like a heartbeat reborn. "I don't think it remembers the difference," she said. Outside, the alien fleet shifted formation, cautious, hesitant. The ghost ship stirred, ancient weapons humming to life after centuries of silence. Ilara took one steady breath, her voice low and certain. "Let's go wake the rest." The lights around them flared white. The Horizon's wake opened its eyes. The corridors of the Horizon's wake pulsed with a dim blue glow, like veins awakening after a long coma. Every step Ilara took echoed through the ship's hollow lungs. Frost melted from the walls, leaving streaks of condensation that shimmered under her helmet light. Somewhere deep within the vessel, metal groaned, a low, deliberate sound, as though the dreadnought itself were inhaling after centuries of silence. Kane's voice came through the comms, tight and uneasy. "Commander, life support's rising. Temperature stabilizing. Oxygen scrubbers are coming online?" "That's not possible," Mira muttered. "There's no way those systems still work after 200 years. Ilara didn't respond. She was staring at a console ahead, where the flickering logo of the Old Earth Alliance rotated slowly. Her hand hovered over the controls. "Don't," Kane said quickly. "You don't know what it'll trigger." "We're already inside a dead warship that shouldn't be breathing," she replied. "If it wanted us dead, it's had plenty of chances." She touched the console. The ship reacted instantly. Lights along the walls brightened, running in sequence like a heartbeat accelerating. The screens around her filled with fractured human script, data streams unreadable, yet oddly familiar. Eidolon systems. Partial restoration. Crew status unknown. Command access pending. Eidolon, Elara said softly. Talk to me. Commander Elara Voss. Her breath hitched. You recognize me? Analysis, voice print matches human registry. Voss lineage detected. Probable relation, Admiral Gareth Voss. Kane blinked. Your grandfather served on this ship? Not this one, she said quietly. But he was part of the same fleet. They all vanished together. Admiral Voss? The AI interrupted. Status, missing in action. Last known transmission, classified. Elara leaned closer to the display. Declassify it. Access denied. Override, she said. Command authority, Voss Delta 7. A long silence followed, filled only by the soft hum of the reactor coming to life. Then the AI spoke again, voice glitching with static. Override accepted. Warning, security breach detected. External entities approaching. Kane's scanners confirmed it a heartbeat later. They're here. Dominion drones, half a dozen signatures. They're boarding. Elara turned sharply. All hands, defensive positions. Keep it quiet. We don't want them to know how much of this ship is alive. The boarding corridor felt like a tomb. The human crew took cover among shattered crates and fallen girders, the flickering lights casting long shadows. A metallic clang reverberated through the deck as the Dominion boarding pod latched onto the outer hull. Contact in 30 seconds, Ishan whispered, weapon trembling slightly in his grip. Elara's gaze was calm, unwavering. They're expecting ruins and bones. Let's disappoint them. The airlock hissed. The first Dominion drone stepped through, a towering, insectoid machine of chrome and bone plating. Its crimson optics swept the corridor, analyzing. Then it stopped, its head tilting toward the human blood heat signatures flickering on its sensors. No, Elara whispered. Kane hit the panel. A pulse of electricity surged through the deck, frying circuits and bathing the hull in blue-white arcs. The first drone convulsed, limbs snapping in spasms before collapsing in smoke. The others reacted instantly, unleashing streams of plasma down the corridor. Fall back! Elara shouted. Bolts scorched the walls, lighting the air with ozone and vaporized frost. Mira dragged Ishan behind a fallen bulkhead, cursing as her medical pack burst open. Kane fired 3 precise bursts, each round glowing faintly blue, the last of their EMP charges. One found its mark, exploding inside a drone's chest cavity. The third drone charged forward unfazed. Elara raised her sidearm, firing into its optic cluster. Sparks showered her visor. The machine stumbled, impaling itself on a jagged pipe jutting from the wall. Its system screamed for 2 long seconds, then fell silent. When the corridor finally quieted, the humans could hear the ship again, breathing, humming, alive. Mira exhaled shakily. We're out of ammo and we barely survived a scout team. What happens when the main fleet arrives? Elara wiped her visor, staring down the corridor into the dark. Then we make sure the ship remembers whose side it's on. They regrouped in the central operations deck. Holographic projectors flickered erratically, trying to form coherent displays. Elara tapped the command terminal again. Eidolon, can you hear me? Functional. Minimal integrity loss. Human crew status unknown. Enemy borders detected. Already handled, she said. But we need the ship's defenses online before they send more. Weapons systems locked. Primary core requires authorization. Whose authorization? Kane asked. Captain Wren. Or successor. Elara's pulse quickened. Where is Captain Wren? Bridge log indicates final position. Command sanctum. Access sealed after event. What event? She pressed. Error. Data redacted. Elara, Kane warned, We're digging into things that got people killed 2 centuries ago. Then we'll find out why. The route to the command sanctum was labyrinthine, winding halls littered with the remains of the last stand. Elara's boots clanged softly against the metal, passing skeletal forms still strapped to gunner chairs, their uniforms faded but intact. Mera whispered a quiet prayer as they passed. They stayed at their posts. They didn't surrender, Elara said. None of them did. At the end of the corridor stood a sealed blast door, its surface burned and scarred. Embedded within was a crimson handprint, perfectly preserved. Biometric lock, Kane said, kneeling. But the ID pattern's centuries old. Elara placed her gloved hand beside it. The scanner flickered, scanning her DNA trace through the suit. Lineage match. Access granted? The door slid open with a heavy sigh. Inside, the bridge was untouched. Rows of consoles slept under layers of dust, but at the center stood the captain's chair, and in it, a human skeleton still in uniform, head bowed, hands clasped around a data core. Elara approached slowly, reverently. She knelt, prying the device from brittle fingers. It flickered to life with a faint blue light. Captain Wren, final log entry. If you're hearing this, humanity still fights. Good. The Concord called us ghosts because they couldn't understand us. They thought extinction was peace. They were wrong. We never surrendered, we waited. The recording glitched, and static swallowed the rest. Elara's chest tightened. She turned to Kane, who was pale beneath the glow. Send this to Eidolon. If this ship remembers us, it'll know what to do. Kane transferred the core into the nearby port. The AI's voice returned, stronger now, steadier. Captain Wren. Verified. Command transferred to successor, Elara Vos. A wave of light swept through the bridge. Power surged to every deck. Hollow panels lit up with tactical overlays. The Dreadnought's reactor roared like thunder. Horizon's Wake reactivated. Elara looked out through the cracked viewport into the black void beyond. The Dominion fleet had arrived, sleek alien ships gliding like predators, their weapons trained on the ghost ship. They think we're a derelict, Kane said. Elara smiled faintly, a cold spark in her eyes. Let's show them how wrong they are. Outside, the Horizon's Wake unfurled its long-dormant weapons, rail batteries, flak arrays, energy lances, each one glowing back to life. The Dominion ships began to scatter. Mera whispered, You've just woken a god. No, Elara said, steady and sure. We woke home. The Horizon's Wake growled like a living beast, and for the first time in 2 centuries, humanity's warship prepared to fight again. The Horizon's Wake was no longer silent. Its heart pulsed with life, a deep, rhythmic hum that rolled through the corridors like a heartbeat remembering how to beat. Every panel flickered to awareness, every bulkhead resonated faintly as if the ship itself was testing its voice after centuries of sleep. Commander Elara Vos stood in the command sanctum, staring at the holographic interface blooming before her. Streams of data poured upward from the console, chaotic, ancient, and fragmented. Eidolon's voice echoed through the bridge, still distorted but stronger than before. Primary memory segments. Corrupted. Attempting restoration. Elara's reflection shimmered in the pale light of the display. Can you access the main core? Negative. Access sealed. Manual override required in the AI vault. Kane frowned, scanning through the tactical grid. That's 3 decks down, near the engineering spine. The radiation levels down there are lethal. Then we'll move fast, Elara said. If we don't bring Eidolon fully online, we'll lose control when the Dominion fleet makes its next move. Mera adjusted her suit's filtration valves, her tone uneasy. What happens if Eidolon remembers something it shouldn't? Elara's gaze stayed fixed on the glowing map. Then we remind it who we are. The journey to the AI vault was a descent into the ship's underworld. The upper decks hummed with slow awakening, but below, the corridors were cold, still frozen in time. Layers of hoarfrost clung to the walls, cracking under their boots. The lights here flickered only when their movement disturbed the sensors, as if the ship watched them pass in silence. Kane's scanner buzzed, Residual power. It's feeding energy from the core to somewhere below us. Whatever's running, it isn't supposed to be. Alara nodded toward a sealed door ahead. Its surface bore the same crimson handprint they'd seen on the bridge. That's it. They pried open the blast door using an old hydraulic cutter, the hiss of decompression echoing down the corridor. Beyond it lay the AI vault, a cathedral of wires and steel. The chamber stretched high above them, cables suspended like roots of a mechanical tree. At its center stood the memory core, a sphere of translucent alloy, pulsing faintly with a cold blue light. Looks almost alive, Mira whispered. Everything on this ship feels alive, Kane muttered. Alara stepped closer. The faint vibrations in the air felt almost like breathing. She placed her gloved hand on the surface of the sphere. The light flared, reacting to her touch. Commander Alara Voss. Access request acknowledged. Memory restoration sequence initiated. The chamber came alive with sound. Dozens of hollow streams erupted from the sphere, fragments of voices, images, battles, coordinates, human faces frozen in terror or triumph. Mira shielded her eyes. What are we seeing? Alara, Kane said, voice tight. This isn't just memory. It's playback from the war. One image stabilized, a war-torn planet burning under alien bombardment. Human ships retreated, chased by Dominion lances of light. Over the chaos, a single transmission repeated. Admiral Voss to all remaining fleets. Activate Protocol Eclipse. If humanity is to survive, you must vanish. Hide the colonies. Hide everything. Alara's heart stopped. It was her grandfather's voice. Mira glanced at her. He ordered them to disappear? Alara nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the hologram. He didn't lose the war. He hid humanity. Confirmation, Eidolon's voice said through the vault's speakers. Humanity's survival depended on concealment. All known coordinates encrypted within this core. Kane turned sharply. Wait, the coordinates are here? The locations of the lost colonies? Affirmative. The realization hit them all at once. Humanity wasn't extinct, just hidden. The horizon's wake had been a guardian, its disappearance deliberate. Mira whispered, almost in awe. They made a ghost ship to protect the living. Before Alara could respond, a deep metallic clang reverberated through the deck. The lights flickered. Kane's scanner lit red. Multiple lifeforms approaching, not human. Dominion boarding teams, Alara said, drawing her weapon. They must have breached through the aft hangar. Intruder alert, Eidolon announced, its tone sharpening. Defense systems offline. Recommended manual engagement. Of course, Kane muttered. Because nothing's ever easy. The first Dominion soldier burst through the vault entrance. Tall, reptilian, armored in chitinous plating that shimmered under the blue light. Behind it came two more, weapons trained. Alara fired first, catching the lead alien across the chest. It roared, collapsing as Kane unleashed a barrage beside her. Mira ducked behind a conduit, dragging a fallen human crate to use as cover. Plasma fire scorched the chamber, ricocheting off metal columns. Sparks rained down, illuminating the chaos in strobing bursts. Kane shouted, We're outnumbered! At least a dozen closing from the corridor. Assistance protocol enabled, Eidolon's voice echoed. Panels along the walls hissed open, revealing automated defense drones, relics from the old war. Their targeting sensors flickered uncertainly before locking onto the Dominion intruders. A dozen beams of coherent light cut across the vault, searing through armor and bone. Within seconds, the noise subsided. Smoke filled the chamber, thick and acrid. Mira coughed, her visor fogging. That was too close. Eidolon, Alara said, catching her breath. Seal the doors. Keep them out. Access restricted. System repairs in progress. The ship shook violently. Somewhere far above, a thunderous explosion rippled through the hull. Kane steadied himself against the railing. That was an orbital strike. They're not trying to board anymore, they're trying to vaporize us. Alara looked up toward the ceiling, where faint tremors sent dust cascading like snow. Then we finish what we started. Eidolon, can you transmit those coordinates to surviving human frequencies? Negative. Encryption keys missing. Stored in Captain Wren's private logs. Where are those logs? Command Sanctum. Auxiliary server. Destroyed. Destroyed? Kane echoed. Then what do we do? Alternative access possible. Human DNA match required to rebuild keys. Elara blinked. You mean me? Correct. Maris shook her head. You can't just let it rewrite your neural pattern. You don't know what that'll do. Elara's expression was calm but resolute. If this ship carries what's left of us, I'll take the risk. She placed her hand back on the memory sphere. A stream of light lanced out, enveloping her helmet. Her mind filled with a flood of images, fragments of memory that weren't hers. Earth burning. Fleets vanishing into deep space. 1,000 human voices whispering the same phrase, "We never surrendered." She gasped as the connection severed. The core dimmed, then pulsed brightly once more. Encryption keys restored. Human coordinates ready for transmission. Kane looked at her stunned. You did it. Elara staggered, steadying herself on the console. Send it to all human channels. If even one of us hears it, they'll know where to go. Transmission in progress. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, the sound of engines powering beyond safe limits. The ship itself seemed to vibrate with purpose. Then, another voice crackled through comms, alien, deep, venomous. Human vessel, said Archon Draxthal. You awaken ghosts best left buried. Surrender the relic, or be erased with it. Elara straightened, her voice steady. You called it a ghost ship, Archon. You were half right. Ghosts don't surrender. Silence. Then the Dominion fleet outside shifted formation. Then you will join them. The transmission ended. Eidolon's voice filled the bridge once more, resonant, defiant. Commander, recommendation, armament sequence ready. Shall we fight? Elara looked toward the glowing memory sphere, the heart of humanity's last guardian, and smiled faintly. Let's remind them what ghosts can do. The horizon's wake shuddered as its ancient weapons came fully online, and for the first time in 2 centuries, the stars trembled. The void outside burned with silent fire. From the shattered windows of the command sanctum, Elara watched the Dominion fleet maneuver into a kill formation. Sleek black vessels cut across the stars, their energy lances pulsing like veins of lightning. The horizon's wake floated at their center, massive and scarred, an ancient predator surrounded by a younger pack. Yet the dreadnought's hull shimmered now with a faint electric glow, the kind of menace that made even predators hesitate. Kane's fingers flew over the control panel, rerouting power to shields. Their weapons are charged. We can't take a direct volley, not yet. Eidolon, Elara said, her tone calm but urgent. Status of our armaments? Primary weapon batteries functional. Secondary turrets, 70% operational. Shield matrix, reinitialized. Then let's give them something to think about, she said. The deck trembled as power surged through the ship's spine. Long dormant cannons extended from the hull, shedding flakes of frost. A deep vibration rippled through the corridors, a sound like thunder building behind steel lungs. Targets acquired, Eidolon reported. Awaiting command authorization. Elara hesitated. Once she gave the order, there would be no going back. This wouldn't be a skirmish. It would be the first battle waged by humankind in over 2 centuries. She took a breath. Fire! The void exploded. Bolts of pure plasma tore through the dark, streaking across space like spears of sunfire. Dominion ships twisted to evade, but the horizon's wake was faster than its age suggested. 2 cruisers disintegrated in the first volley, their hulls blooming into silent infernos. Kane grinned fiercely. That's for calling us ghosts. The victory was short-lived. 6 more enemy vessels surged forward, returning fire. The ship shuddered violently as the first barrage struck. Consoles flared. The bridge dimmed. Mira grabbed the railing, her voice sharp over the alarms. Shields dropping to 65%. Elara steadied herself, eyes cold. Divert non-essential power to defense. Keep firing. Warning, Eidolon said. Sustained damage to outer hull. Life support compromised in sectors 4 through 7. Seal them off, she ordered. The ship obeyed instantly, bulkhead doors slamming shut in distant corridors. Through the tremors, the crew could feel the horizon's wake fighting back, not as a machine, but as something alive, something angry. Then the comms flickered. A new voice crackled through, deep and metallic. Commander Elara Voss. You stand aboard a relic of war. Power it down and surrender. You have no place in this galaxy anymore. The voice was unmistakable, Archon Draxthal. Elara's expression hardened. Funny. We were about to say the same thing. You misunderstand. Humanity's defiance cost billions of lives. The Concord remembered your fire, and your arrogance. We buried you once. She leaned forward, eyes glinting in the light of the burning stars. Then maybe you should have dug deeper. Draxthal's voice darkened. You mistake desperation for courage. You'll die and your ghosts with you. The transmission cut off. Commander, Kane said, scanning the tactical feed. They're deploying breacher pods, multiple signatures inbound. They're coming inside. Let them, Elara said. We'll welcome them properly. The interior decks shook as the pods slammed into the hull. The sound of tearing metal echoed like distant thunder. Mira handed out weapons from the emergency rack, sleek pulse rifles etched with the Earth Alliance insignia, long forgotten by history. Kane checked the ammunition. 3 mags each. That's all we've got. Elara sealed her helmet. Then we make every shot count. The corridor outside the main reactor glowed red with warning lights. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, creating a fog that shimmered under the emergency beacons. Footsteps, heavy alien, echoed through the mist. Elara held up a hand. The crew crouched behind a collapsed support beam. The first Dominion soldier stepped through the fog, armored in obsidian plates, a tri-lensed helmet scanning for movement. Behind it came a second and a third, their rifles crackling with ion energy. Elara waited. The moment their formation spread, she signaled. 3 shots. 3 clean kills. The aliens collapsed soundlessly, their blood evaporating in the heat. Mira whispered, We can't hold this forever. We don't have to, Elara said. Just long enough. From above, Eidolon's voice thundered through the ship's comms. Commander, Archon Draxthul has breached the docking ring. He is heading for the core. Elara's pulse quickened. He's after the coordinates. Kane swore softly. If he gets them, every surviving human colony becomes a target. She nodded once. Then we stop him ourselves. They reached the core chamber moments before Draxthul. The great mechanical sphere pulsed steadily, bathing the room in blue light. The Dominion Archon stepped through the doorway, tall, armored in flowing dark plates that shimmered like wet glass. His face was angular, predatory, his 4 eyes glowing faintly crimson. Impressive, he said, voice low and resonant. A human commanding a ship of ghosts. I half expected you to be myths. Elara leveled her rifle. We get that a lot. He took another step forward, unarmed, confident. Do you know what that thing behind you holds? The coordinates of your lost kin. If I destroy it, humanity ends quietly. No war, no chaos, just silence. Silence isn't peace, she said. It's just death with better manners. Draxthul tilted his head slightly. You speak like your ancestors, all defiance, no understanding. You think you can win this? I don't need to win, she replied. I just need you to lose. Before he could answer, Kane opened fire. Draxthul's shield flared, deflecting the rounds. In an instant he moved, impossibly fast. His clawed gauntlet struck Kane across the chest, hurling him into a console. Sparks flew. Mira screamed, dragging Kane out of the line of fire as Elara charged forward. She swung the rifle like a blade, catching the Archon's arm. The impact jarred her bones, but the motion bought her a heartbeat. She dove behind the core as Draxtul's plasma blade ignited, slicing through steel. Eidolon's voice boomed overhead. Hull breach in progress. Suggested action, terminate hostile. Working on it, Elara shouted. Draxtul raised his weapon. I admired your species once. You burn brighter than anyone. But even stars die. Maybe, Elara said, raising her pistol. But not before they leave scars. She fired. The shot struck the containment coils above him. A burst of raw energy cascaded down, engulfing the Archon in searing light. His shield shattered, his body thrown across the chamber. Mira pulled Kane clear as the lights flickered violently. Warning, Eidolon intoned. Reactor stability compromised. Elara staggered to her feet, breathing hard. Eidolon, reroute control to manual. We're not dying here. Complying. The tremors subsided slightly. Smoke coiled from the Archon's fallen armor. He stirred, laughing weakly. You think this changes anything? The galaxy will come for you. Elara knelt beside him, her voice a quiet edge. Let them. We've been waiting 200 years to be remembered. His final breath hissed through his broken mask. Then humanity truly is cursed. The light in his eyes dimmed. Silence filled the chamber. Mira checked Kane's vitals, weak but alive. We need to move. The Dominion ships are regrouping. The signal burned across the stars like a cry from the grave. Every screen aboard the Horizon's Wake pulsed with cascading data, waveforms of ancient code carrying humanity's coordinates through the void. The light from the transmission flooded the bridge in shimmering gold. It wasn't just energy, it was memory being reborn. Elara stood at the viewport, her reflection ghosted over the blazing signal. For the first time, she allowed herself a single breath of disbelief. After centuries, humanity's call was out again. Somewhere, someone might still be listening. Kane's weak voice broke the silence. Transmission stable. I rerouted through the auxiliary comm arrays to extend range. If anyone's alive out there, they'll hear it. Mira was crouched beside him, patching the gash along his side. You shouldn't be standing, Kane. You lost too much blood. He forced a grin. Can't miss the end of the world. Elara turned toward them. Not the end, she said quietly. The beginning of another fight. A deep vibration rumbled through the hull. The Dominion fleet had repositioned, blocking every escape vector. Eidolon's voice filled the bridge, calm and toneless. Enemy formations closing. Fleet count, 84 vessels. Horizon's Wake shield integrity at 41%. Mira glanced at Elara. We can't hold against that many. Elara's expression didn't change. We won't need to. She walked to the central console, her boots clanging against the deck. The holographic projection of the Horizon's Wake floated before her, a wounded Leviathan still surrounded by a sea of smaller ships. Eidolon, she said. Show me the ship's remaining power distribution. Primary reactor output at 57%. Weapons grid at 61. Drive systems nominal. She studied the diagram, then spoke with quiet resolve. If we reroute the entire energy matrix into the main dish, how long before overload? 17 minutes. Good, she said. Prepare the charge. Kane's head snapped up. Elara, that would cripple the ship. There won't be anything left after a discharge like that. That's the point, she replied. We can't outrun them. But if we can push the signal beyond the outer rim before they destroy us, humanity's colonies will know where to find each other. That's what this ship was built for. Mira stared at her, horrified. You're talking about suicide. Elara met her eyes. I'm talking about purpose. A long silence followed. Even Eidolon paused, as if considering the weight of what she'd said. Confirmation required. Initiating final command sequence will result in total system loss. Elara straightened, voice steady. Confirmed. Acknowledged. Beginning preparation for final broadcast. The hum of the reactor deepened into a steady roar. Lights dimmed across the bridge as power rerouted through the conduits. The dreadnought's hull glowed faintly with rising energy, its surface pattern shifting like a living organism gathering strength for one last breath. Kane exhaled shakily. "You always planned to end it this way, didn't you?" She turned to him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "No. I planned to come home. But sometimes you build the road with what's left of you." Outside, the Dominion fleet formed a tightening ring. Dozens of plasma cannons glowed red-hot, converging on the dreadnought. Archon Draxtel's flagship moved to the front, his symbol, a burning spiral, painted across its hull. "Archon DRXTHUL transmission incoming," Eidolon announced. Elara nodded. "Put him through." The alien's visage filled the bridge, cold eyes like shards of obsidian, his voice dripping with contempt. "So this is how humanity ends, clutching relics and ghosts. Do you truly believe anyone still lives to answer your call?" Elara's expression stayed unreadable. "You wouldn't be trying this hard to stop us if you were sure. You could have hidden, Commander. You could have survived quietly. But you chose to wake a nightmare." She stepped closer to the projection, her tone calm and razor-sharp. "We were never the nightmare, Archon. We were the warning." Draxtel sneered. "You'll burn with your ship." "Maybe," she said softly. "But not alone." The transmission cut. Kane looked at her, voice low. "They're going to fire everything they've got." "Let them," Elara said. "The galaxy should remember what happens when they try to bury us." Minutes crawled by. The ship trembled under sporadic bombardment. Sections of the outer hull collapsed, venting debris into space. Alarms screamed through the decks, each one a countdown. Mira worked furiously at the engineering console. "Overload sequence at 80%. I can stabilize it for 3 more minutes, no longer." Elara watched the tactical screen. "That's all we need." Eidolon's voice came softer now, almost human. "Commander, I detect human signals responding to our transmission. Multiple sources. Outer colonies, confirming trajectory locks." Kane's eyes widened. "They're alive?" "Affirmative. Humanity endures." Elara closed her eyes briefly, letting the words sink in. For a moment, the noise of battle faded, the alarms, the rumbling deck, the dying lights, and there was only the hum of something greater, a race reborn. When she opened her eyes again, the Dominion fleet was charging weapons for the final strike. "Eidolon," she said, "when I give the word, release everything we have." "Understood." She looked back at her crew, the last humans aboard a ship that refused to die. Myra's face was streaked with sweat and grime. Kane clutched his side, barely standing, yet grinning like he always had before battle. "Commander," he said quietly, "if this works, what do we call it?" Elara smiled faintly. "Homecoming." The Archon's fleet unleashed its barrage. Dozens of plasma beams converged on the horizon's wake, tearing through shields and armor. The dreadnought convulsed as sections of its hull vaporized. Fire danced along the walls. The ship's alarms wailed a single note of defiance. "Reactor stability critical," Eidolon warned. "No," Elara said. The ship screamed. The main dish flared to life, gathering every ounce of power left in its reactor. The resulting surge was blinding, a radiant burst that illuminated the entire system. The shockwave tore through the Dominion formation, ripping ships apart, scattering debris like dust before a storm. Inside the bridge, the light washed over them. Mira shielded her eyes. "Elara!" Elara gripped the console. "Eidolon, transmit the final payload." "Transmitting." The signal intensified, carrying the last of the ship's energy into the void. Through the viewports, the galaxy itself seemed to shimmer, as if acknowledging that the ghosts of Earth had spoken again. The deck split beneath them. Gravity failed. Flames licked the edges of the bridge. "Elara!" Kane shouted. She turned toward him, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Get to the escape pod." He shook his head. "Not without you." She smiled faintly. "You're stubborn." That's why I liked you on my crew. Energy exhaustion imminent, Eidolon warned. The ship's light dimmed as systems shut down one by one. Ilara, Mira said softly. If they find that signal. They won't find it, Ilara said, her voice steady. It's already beyond them. She looked up at the viewport, at the stars flickering one last time before the fire consumed everything. Eidolon, she said, make sure the message stays clear. Always. The final pulse surged outward, a flare of light so bright it cut through the blackness. The silence after the storm was absolute. No alarms. No voices. No heartbeat of machinery. Just the endless hush of space swallowing what remained of the horizon's wake. Shards of the dreadnought drifted among clouds of frozen vapor, each fragment glowing faintly where the final pulse had burned through the hull. The Dominion fleet was gone, scattered wrecks and fractured ships tumbling through the void, their once formidable armada reduced to drifting relics. And through the debris, a single escape pod spun slowly, its small thrusters fighting to stabilize it. Inside, Commander Ilara Voss stirred. Her vision was fogged, the emergency lights bleeding into her eyes. Her suit's diagnostics blinked red across her visor, oxygen critical, temperature unstable, pulse irregular. She drew in a ragged breath and tried to move. Pain knifed through her ribs, but the realization that she was still alive steadied her. Eidolon, she whispered hoarsely. Status. No response. Only static crackling through the calm. Ilara, came a faint voice, distorted and barely audible. Kane. You made it out? She twisted, searching the void through the pod's narrow viewport. Another escape capsule floated a few hundred meters away, its transponder flickering weakly. Relief surged through her chest. Barely, she said, coughing. You. Concussion. Bruised ego. Myra's with me. We're both still here. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, her voice soft. Then the ship did her job. Outside, the last fragments of the horizon's wake glimmered faintly like embers fading from a dying fire. Yet the transmission, their final broadcast, had already gone. She could feel it. Somewhere across the galaxy, the message was traveling, carrying their coordinates, and their defiance with it. Kane's voice crackled again. The Dominion's fleet, what's left of them, are retreating. Looks like they're running from ghosts. Ilara gave a weak smile. Good. Let them remember why they feared us. A flicker of light caught her eye, the beacon indicator on her panel. The long-range comms array had reactivated, not through her controls, but remotely. A transmission was coming in. Ilara. Myra's voice cut in, excited, breathless. We're picking up something. It's human. Ilara straightened painfully in her seat. Say that again. I'm patching it through now. The signal burst into her comms, faint at first, then clear as the static faded. This is Captain Elon Reyes of the Dauntless. Receiving unknown human transmission. Coordinates match Old Earth's outer fleet markers. Identify yourself. Ilara froze. The name Dauntless wasn't just familiar, it was legendary. It had been one of the 12 colony escort ships that vanished after the collapse. She took a steadying breath. This is Commander Ilara Voss, salvage vessel Ardent Dawn. We found the horizon's wake. Her voice faltered for a moment. We woke her. A pause. Then the voice replied, slow, reverent. Horizon's wake? That ship's been lost for 2 centuries. How are you even alive? Ilara glanced out the viewport again, watching the field of wreckage glint under distant starlight. Because she refused to die. And she sent your name home. There was silence on the other end, the kind of silence where 1,000 emotions press together, and none find words. Then Captain Reyes spoke again, voice thick with awe. We received your signal. Every hidden outpost, every colony. You lit up the grid. For the first time in generations, we know where to go. Ilara's throat tightened. Then it worked. It did, Reyes said. You're the reason we're coming back. She leaned her head against the pod's cold frame, exhaustion finally overtaking adrenaline. We thought we were the last. You were the first to stand again, Reyes said quietly. Hold your position, Commander. We're inbound. Hours passed in fragments. The emergency lights dimmed. Oxygen levels dipped lower. Alara drifted in and out of half-consciousness, her mind replaying echoes of the past, the war, the silence, the ship's awakening. Somewhere in the haze, she heard the faint hum of thrusters approaching. A shadow crossed the viewport. Then floodlights pierced the dark, blinding her for a moment. Contact visual, Kane's voice said through the calm. That's them. The Dauntless. The rescue ship's hull filled her view, vast and bright, freshly repaired and clearly human-built. As docking clamps locked onto her capsule, Alara exhaled a long, trembling breath. When the hatch opened, warm light poured in. Human light. 2 figures in alliance-patterned suits pulled her free, supporting her weight. Her legs gave out, and for the first time in years, she felt real gravity under her feet. A tall man in a dark uniform stepped forward, Captain Reyes. His expression was a mix of disbelief and respect. Commander Voss, he said, his voice low. You just restarted a chapter of history we thought was over. She looked around the hangar bay. Rows of humans, young, alert, alive, worked in quiet rhythm. They weren't the descendants of fear. They were builders. Survivors. How many of you are there? She asked. Reyes smiled faintly. More than you think. Enough to start again. Alara's gaze flicked toward the observation window, where the remnants of the horizon's wake drifted in the distance. She bought us this chance. Don't let her be forgotten. Reyes nodded. We won't. The galaxy's going to remember the day the ghosts returned. Later, in the med bay, Mira sat beside her bunk. Kane slept in the next cot, his breathing shallow but steady. The hum of the ship's engines was soft, rhythmic, almost comforting. Alara watched the stars sliding past through the viewport. Each one shimmered faintly, as if echoing the pulse of the signal that still traveled among them. Mira broke the silence. Do you think they'll come? The others? Alara smiled faintly. They already have. They're just finding their way. She reached for the small data drive hanging from her neck, the only surviving fragment of the Horizon's Wake's core. Inside it, Eidolon's final imprint flickered quietly, a faint heartbeat of light. Eidolon, she whispered, though she knew the AI couldn't hear. You did it. The drive pulsed once in reply, a soft glow, then stillness. Mira glanced over. Is that his last sequence? Alara said. He held the transmission together even after the core blew. He didn't want the signal to die. Myra's eyes softened. Neither did you. Alara looked out into the void again, her voice a whisper. We never do. When the Dauntless broke from the wreck field, the stars ahead burned brighter, not because of proximity, but because of what awaited. Dozens of other signals now blinked across the scanner grids. Human signatures. Fleets awakening, colonies responding. The rebirth of a species. As the ship accelerated into the black, Captain Reyes' voice echoed through the intercom. To all surviving colonies, this is Fleet Command. The old world is calling. Humanity is coming home. The bridge lights dimmed to amber. Outside, the last fragments of the Horizon's Wake caught a distant sunbeam. For a brief second, the wreck shimmered like it was whole again, a ghost saluting the living. Alara watched until it vanished from view. Then she whispered the final words she would ever speak to that ship. Rest now. We'll carry it from here. The engines flared, and the Dauntless slipped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, the void closed, quiet once more, but not empty.